Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thursday. It's 8 p.m. and it's the Big Metal Detecting Podcast.
Welcome to the Big Metal Detecting Podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Sadler here from the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine with this week's Big Metal Detecting Podcast. This week's show, unfortunately, we were due to have guests from Hammered Time YouTube Metal Detecting YouTube channel. Unfortunately, they've had to cancel. So, thankfully, and in good stead, we are joined tonight by Mr. Tony Cawood. Now, issue we've got is that for some reason I can't actually hear Mr. Cawood exceptionally well, so I've got my ears right up to the speakers because, hey, it wouldn't be the show without an issue, would it? So to start off tonight anyway, obviously with the parish announcements and such like, I've just received my copy of this month's Archaeology magazine. It's been going for 75 years, so it's the January and February edition. Including lots of digs and such like, early humans in Suffolk, the Great Anglo-Saxon Dilemma, reviews, news and much more. Several interesting features about metal detecting. One discussing the Galloway Hoard and some of the recent finds for that, which we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. One mentioned the people going to prison, and a few more bits and bobs about the Staffordshire Hoard. So all in all, a nice little publication there, although not cheap at £6. The second magazine, which we're going to give mention to, especially as it's a bumper 124-page issue, is that of this month's Treasure Hunting magazine. Well, it's actually January 2020, but it's out today. The bumper 124-page issue of Treasure Hunting is on sale now, including a 40-page annual PAS report, plus the usual selection of great articles and finds. Available from detectors, retailers, WH Smiths and all good news agents, or go to greenlightpublishing.com and you will find more information on how to get hold of, let's face it, the best on the shelf magazine of its type, and hey, with the longevity that's got, it must be doing something right. Also in the news this week, Spring Detectival has been announced, which this will be taking place again at Henley-on-Thames in Oxfordshire, on the banks of the River Thames between Henley and Thames and Marlow. The metal detecting days will be Saturday the 4th and Sunday the 5th of April next year, and with support and sponsorship for the main event sponsor Leisure Promotions and for many other main businesses. So if you are interested in participating at Spring Detectival 2020, pop on along to detectival.com and you will be able to book tickets now for that. Fantastic Christmas present for some people, perhaps. Evening to all in the chat room already. Now, as I say, I'm going to have an issue here in Tony 100%. I've got a few more parish notices, but as I say, if you could give me a shout out if you, the listener, are having issues hearing Tony tonight, I'd appreciate that. I can't hear him brilliantly, and all my settings are exactly the same as normal, but hey, we'll see when we get there. Also in Metal Detecting news, one that's just been published on the Manchester Evening News website. A metal detectorist found a gold medieval ring buried in a farmer's field in Stockport. And in a rare case, Paul Gardner's unusual find has officially been classed as treasure by the coroner. The ring is now set to join the collection at the British Museum in London and net Paul a tidy little windfall. Why do they always have to go on about money and how much people are making out of metal detecting? To me, if I find something, yes, all well and groovy if you want to put it onto the news and show people what we find in the metal detecting community, but why talk about money? Because this is one of the things that causes attacks from other areas of the establishment and hobbyists, etc. But he's also found in this area, in Marple in Stockport, which I know very well, Bronze Age arrowheads, coins spanning 12 different monarchs, and even a small cannonball. And this is his first real treasure find, so well done to Paul Gardner on them finds. Secondly, news that came out last night. A gentleman called Don Crawley down in Suffolk, who he was amazed when he has made a pretty penny after a haul of old coins which he found in Suffolk, sold for 90,000 at auction. He was taking his metal detector for a spin, and he discovered 99 silvers coins at site of a forgotten Saxon church. The 50-year-old from Bucklesham was visiting a farmer's field for the first time when he made the discovery in 2017. Absolutely gorgeous coins. Lots and lots of images on the web if you look for them. And they date back as far as the reign of King Ethelred II, known as Ethelred the Unready, who ruled England from 978 to 1016. So have a Google of that, and I'm sure you'll enjoy seeing them. Another big piece of news out today: an Iron Age shield found in Pocklington is one of the most important ancient finds this millennium. After centuries underground, the dirt-encrusted object gave little hint of what was revealed. It's probably from a high person in the British Celtic community. Beautiful thing, anyway. So you can have a look for that. All these are also on the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine Facebook page, so you'll be able to find more information there. Anyway, one more bit of news, and that is next week's show, which I will remind you at the end, but it's a very, very important show, probably the most important show that I've personally been involved with. Next week's show, we are joined by John Rigby, who is the membership secretary from the National Council for Metal Detecting. John's obviously got access to all the people within the membership of the National Council for Metal Detecting, and he will be conducting a live draw. Now, the draw is for all current NCMD members. Everyone is automatically entered into the draw, and they're going to be making a draw, random number generator. He's not going to read the number out. He's obviously, because of data protection, he'll read the name out, which corresponds with the number, and we will obviously be told every 5 minutes or so the next winner from the draw. So there's 10 detectors coming from the NCMD, 5 XPORXs and 5 Equinox 800s. So all you have to do is listen next week, or you will be, if you are a winner, you will be notified after the draw itself. So very big show next week. We should have lots of new listeners. I'm hoping I'm going to also be joined by Luke Higgins, my compadre from the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine, on the show, who we'll be chatting about things that we're doing within the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine, the big metal detecting podcast, what's coming. The week after that, we're joined by Mr. Aaron Weedle on the 19th of December. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm currently making progress with putting a show together related to all the major metal detecting finds that have been discovered or announced this year. So, for instance, we're going to be talking about the Hambleton Hoard from Spring Detectable, several other things. And hopefully this is going to be a pre-recorded show because I may have to participate or one or two sherbets on Boxing Day, which is when the show's due. So Mr. Pettican's birthday on the 19th, so we'll wish you a merry birthday on that day, Mr. Pettican. I'm sure Facebook will remind me that. Anyway, on to tonight's guest, a gentleman who he's been on the All Metal Mode UK podcast a few times. I met him for the first time this year at Detectable. A lovely young man who helped us immensely on the stall, and I can't big him up enough for what he's helped me with the Rutus metal detector. If it wasn't for Tony, I'd probably be lying in the bottom of a lake by now, but thankfully he's given me lots of tips, programs, etc., and I've been able to find multiple nice little finds off that. So, good evening, Tony. How are you?
Good evening, Dave. I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for that glowing recommendation. Nice to be called young.
You're more than welcome. Are you well?
I'm very well, yeah, absolutely. It's getting to that time of year when work starts to ramp down a little bit. No more 5-day weeks until 2020. I'm very well.
Oh, look at you. Ours is actually picking up a little bit, getting a little bit busier. Thankfully, I'm off tomorrow when I finish on the 19th, Stephen Petkin's birthday. Yes, I can hear you. Can everybody else hear Tony all right? Good evening, Dirt Diggers UK. Somebody just let me know. Yes, Steve Pettit. Now, Steve, is Tony coming out okay sound-wise, or is it just my system that he's whispering to me through? Did anybody hear that? Is Tony
I heard what you said, Dave.
Okay with everybody else, or is it just me? And everyone's ignoring it's Tony. We'll just chat amongst ourselves.
Yep.
Yes,
absolutely.
Can't wait to shut down. I'll be. Tony is louder.
Tony is louder. Louder, apparently.
Louder. I can actually.
That's good.
I can actually tell you change that a little bit, so we're both. We should be equal now, but it must be my system, Tony. And I do apologise. Obviously, I'll look into that over the next. Well, I can look into that tomorrow because I'll be off work. So, what have you been up to, young man?
Yeah, out and about. Had some interesting hunts of late. A couple of new permissions picked up. A couple of chats with Rutus about things. Been busy on the detecting front.
Any Rutus information we are allowed to know right now?
Well, I keep pressuring them to give me a date for when the new machine is released, but they're refusing point blank to be drawn into setting a date that they then miss, which is probably sensible given what other manufacturers have had to go through with theirs. But they're still targeting next year at some point, and you will all know as soon as I know, because I will be shouting it from the rooftops when I find out.
The thing is, though, with the new machine from Rutus, obviously they've come out with the Alta 71, which is the multiple frequency. Where can they go now?
Well, I think what users would say the drawback to the Rutus is it's not waterproof, so that will be fixed in the new machine. There will be a better wireless feature. I believe there will be reprogramming it for software updates without needing to send it back to a dealer. And it will unusually have a colour screen as well, I believe. So there's a bunch of stuff that are coming downstream, which I think enhance the Alta 71 even further. Hopefully, things like the waterproofing in particular will take away a bugbear a few people have had when, especially beach detectorists and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. Hopefully by the point that we come to the festivals next year, where Rutus Attend will be able to see that maybe a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that we will be. It will time itself perfectly to actually show it off at the one of the festivals. It'd be really nice. But like I said, quite sensibly, they're not going to overpromise and underdeliver on a date until they're a lot more confident about it.
Fantastic. But at least we do know that something is in the pipeline.
We know something is in the pipeline for definite. And whilst obviously it would have been nice to be able to announce a load of extra dates and things like that for when it's coming out, I do have an announcement in terms of a Rutus Christmas competition if people are interested in competition to win things at Christmas.
Oh, marvellous. We do like a competition.
So the competition is going to be for an Alta 71, so a free machine at Christmas. Details are still being finalised, but if you keep an eye on Rutus's Facebook page and their Instagram account over the next week, you will see details announced on there on how you can win an Alta 71 for free, gratis, nothing. And I might even send you my settings.
That's fantastic news. And it is actually the season. I mean, I'm a member of the UK Detector Net forum, who don't touch Facebook or social media in any way, shape or form. And they've just announced their big Christmas raffle. So they've got multiple prizes on offer there. I'm also a member of the Dudley Metal Detecting Group, and on the 15th, it's their Christmas rally where they'll be doing, well, collecting all year for obviously get to the point where they can give out prizes at Christmas. So, yeah, a lot of things popping up through social media. So, yeah, we look forward to seeing the competition for the Rutus Alta 71. Now, Tony, I think we spoke about it before, but for people who do use the Rutus Alta 71, tell us a little bit about the app that you created.
Yeah, well, the app for Team Rutus UK and the website for the same we made during the summer because the members of Team Rutus UK, of which there are 7 of us, we are Rutus fans and Alta 71 users, and we are happy to bend your ear about how great the machine is. We sort of came together with Rutus and attended the Rodney Cook Memorial Festival and Main Detectable itself, kind of as brand advocates and to demonstrate the machine to anybody who was interested and stopped us and wanted to chat about it. Obviously, as a smaller brand with a smaller marketing budget, things like that are a lot more useful for them because they get the word out on the street from actual users rather than, flashy YouTube videos or marketing campaigns like that. So we had a great time at Detectable and Rodney Cook, and details of which were available via the app. And I'm pleased to be able to say that Team Rutus UK will be in attendance at Detectable both spring and main, and at Rodney Cook again this year. So we'll be out and about with our Rutus expert team, hoodies and T-shirts on. Please stop us if you see us and ask us about the machine, which a lot of people did this summer. And we will gladly tell you everything we know about the wonders that are the Alta 71.
It certainly is. Fantastic little app. One of the main things that, for me, obviously, using the app is that I was able to download your own and other Rutus's users' settings.
Indeed, yes. The settings are both on there and on the Rutus UK Facebook page. I've pulled them together and put them in a PDF, so nice and easy for people to program them into the Rutus in the personal settings spaces that are in the V2 software. So you can have a play with my settings, with Arik's, the owner of Rutus's settings, and a variety of other people's settings that they've submitted. The one thing about the Rutus above probably all else is just how customizable it is. So it's great to see other users getting involved and sharing the settings that they've been successful with. Including recently, I've started using.
For me, success with the machine, because although it's easy to use, there's so much to it. It can become a difficult machine to understand. So obviously, with that. With using the settings, I'm successful, given the area, the region I am, etc., etc. It's been it's been decent to use. I mean, I've used your own, I've used Tony Gaylor's, I've used Yvonne Merchant's, Arik. I think Arik obviously is the owner and the person who's designed and put the machine together. His machines, am I right in saying, a little bit more based for Poland, where he's based?
Yeah, definitely. I've used a couple of his settings over here. They are what I would consider sparky. So if you're quite happy with a lot of noise, then give them a go by all means. But they are kind of designed for Arik and particularly hunting in forests, which I know he does a lot of.
Yeah, he's. It was very, very noisy, very, very difficult to understand for what I was using it for. So obviously, using something that's more set up for the UK conditions, it was obviously far easier for me to maintain that. So there's your own on there, there's Adrian's on there, there's Yvonne Merchant's on there, Eric's, anybody else?
So I've just been using a new one from Vic's hammy settings. So if you want to have a look at those, they're the last one on the set. Weirdly enough, they're a set theoretically designed for finding hammies on edge and things like that. And I found a hammy with one last Friday. So clearly work. So they're worth a look as well. So definitely recommend having to play with those settings too.
You realise now I'm going to have to print it out again and laminate it again if there's an addition.
But this is what it's like with the wonderful, wacky world of Rutus. We keep updating everything, so it's all fresh and new all the time.
Indeed.
Just don't laminate it this time.
Doing it. Yes, I do have one, Scott. No, I shouldn't be on the team. I'd be the person that would be saying, yes, this is the Rutus. Go and ask Luke or go and ask Tony. So, as I said, there's yourself on the team. There's Luke Higgins, Yvonne Merchant, Adrian Gaylor. Who else is on the team?
Niall, Brent, and who else have we got? David Matthias and Richard Lincoln. There's 7 of us all together.
Of course, how did I forget Richard?
Exactly.
Yeah, obviously Richard was and Luke were covering the Rodney Cook, and then there was, I think you were most of the team, if not all. Oh no, Yvonne did. Yvonne was at Rodney Cook as well. There was only
Yvonne and David
were the detectable.
Yeah, Rodney Cook. Yeah, hopefully we'll get all together at one of them this year.
So, did you get much interest over that period of time?
Yeah. I mean, I think all of us were stopped at one point or another, and certainly when we were hanging around the Rutus stall, it was helpful because our English is better than their natural Polish speaking. Having said that, my Polish is awful, so that seems fair. So we were helping on the stall as well, but I got stopped in the field a couple of times. Once by somebody from Poland who just thought it was a bit odd that there was somebody not from Poland who had a Rutus Alta 71. Which was quite amusing, trying to explain that a good machine is a good machine, don't have to be from the same country to use it. But yeah, we got a lot of interest. There were a lot of people looking around the stall, wanting to know about the machine, a few people asking about what's coming next, and those sort of things. So lots of interest. I think a successful trip for the 3 of them who came over from Poland, because it was quite a trek for them.
It was, but it was also at the same time, obviously, behind the scenes, most people like myself and Luke, we communicate with Viola, so it was actually nice to meet Viola in the flesh and talk about the machines and the company with her, as opposed to the people that we've already spoke to previously.
Oh, definitely, it was nice to put names to faces. And I've personally always spoken to Viola on Messenger, so it's nice to actually hear her voice to go with it as well, rather than just see the text in a little bubble.
And myself and Luke and Niall, we actually, and Scotty B, we actually camped right next to them, right behind their stall. So we saw quite a lot of them over the weekend, to be honest. It was nice catching up, obviously, of Eric and the other gentleman whose name eludes me that came over last year with him, so it was nice to catch up with them again. And, obviously talk about things that we don't normally talk about publicly. We do talk about machines and such like, but, they were giving additional information about, like you said, the potential of a new machine this year and whatnot. So it was nice to learn all that, and obviously... For myself, I got to meet you, Adrian Gaylor. I've obviously met Yvonne last year. Obviously, I know Luke. I met Richard Lincoln at Rodney Cook Memorial Rally. So it was nice to actually put, again, names to faces of people that I communicate with often, but don't know them. So, hey, that's the metal detecting community for you.
Well, I mean, Detectable and Rodney Cook, those sort of the larger festivals, it's great. For those, I guess, Scott's in chat, the YouTube community as well, because we interact with a lot of people through our YouTube channels, but you don't necessarily get to put names to faces until you go to somewhere like Detectiveville and you get to meet all the people that either you watch their channels, they watch your channels. It's I would argue that Detectiveville is almost more about the social side than it is the detecting. So it was great to meet up with people, have a beer or a Coke in Scott's case, and catch up over the fire and see the mad French people dancing.
Yes, definitely more community better. For the two occasions that I've actually been to Detectiveville and the Rodney Cup Memorial Rally, I've not actually held a metal detector other than have a look at things on stalls, the Simplex, the new C-scope and whatnot. So yeah, I totally appreciate and understand that. So anyway, you mentioned YouTube, Tony. Tell us a little bit more about your channel. Obviously, give it a plug or whatnot, and tell us a little bit more about how it was created and why and such like.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I started getting into metal detecting, which is only 2.5 years ago, I'm still a relative newcomer. When I moved up to my first proper machine, which was the Rutus, there wasn't a lot of English language videos. Not surprisingly, there were a fair few Polish videos. So I thought, given it was a relatively niche brand at the time and the machine was new, I thought it would be useful for everyone else if I sort of started to share my findings with it, how I was finding it, settings I was using, those sort of things, just to give it a little bit of a push, really, and to help anybody else like me who was new to it and new to the machine. And then that's where it started with, really. As with any hobby I get myself involved in, I tend to throw myself at it and don't really do it in half measures. So before you know it, I was doing air tests on different coils, doing research videos, which were obviously broader than just Rutus and things like that, and getting relatively positive feedback for the up until probably the last month or so. I was entirely behind the camera, so I never came out. So it was just the machine and the settings, because there were so many people doing it the other way around. So I thought, I'll do that. I've started now putting my ugly mug in front of the camera as well, pretty variety, and we've just hit 400 subscribers. So for those who aren't currently a subscriber to TC Detects, there is a 400 subscriber giveaway ongoing as we speak. So I think it's the third to last video. You go check that out and subscribe. You could be in with a chance of winning a pinpointer, which has been kindly donated by Laura at Technics, or a bunch of Rutus goodies, which has been donated by Wyola and the Rutus team. So if you've not checked out the channel, check it out and subscribe, and you could be in a chance to win. I'll be drawing that in the next week or 10 days. There you go, Scott.
How are you actually going to do the draw?
Pardon, mate?
How are you actually going to do the draw? What's the how is the winner going to be?
I'll be random comment selector until I've run out of prizes to give away.
So you're going to be.
I've got one pinpointer, and so this one is restricted to UK residents. The first subscriber giveaway I didn't specify that, and I think sending one to Manila cost me about 20 quid. So I'm not doing it this way around.
We made exactly the same mistake ourselves. We had a pinpointer which we give away as a prize. I think it's about 2 years ago now, and the lady who won it, because I didn't specify it myself, was in the US, and we had to obviously send it to the US. So it was about £15 postage for that, and she didn't receive it. So thankfully, somebody I know from the club that I chair, was telling them the story, and he said, right, I've got one. So he gave us exactly the same pinpointer, and we were able to send that over. And I'd done it obviously different, recorded delivery and such like, and thankfully she received it. So yeah, I understand how much that costs. Yes,
well, you live and learn, don't you? Live and learn.
You do. In fact, to be honest, because of the success of the printed copy of the magazine that we do, which next year, by the way, has got 4 editions that have definite editions which are being published. We think for Spring Detectable, for the event that Scotty B of Norfolk Time Metal Detecting is organising. We're going to coincide the second edition of next year with that, which is also a celebratory 40th anniversary of the National Council for Metal Detecting edition. So that'll be obviously coming next. Thereafter, Detectable and the Rodney Cup Memorial Rally. So there are 4 confirmed. This year, as you know, Tony, we actually produced a magazine for the title sponsor of Detectable. So we dealt solely with Minelab, and we were able to produce a magazine for that. So hopefully, all being well, we'll be able to do something not dissimilar next year. So 4, maybe 5, and if there's interest and the opportunity, we may even make it more again. So looking forward to that greatly.
It was really popular when we were at Detectable. We got loads of interest on the store, lots of copies flying off the shelves, as it were.
We did, especially with yourself being, it was baking hot out there, especially you coming in for a bit of a rest from the heat, and acted as our wingman and giving out the magazines for us as well. So, again, much appreciated.
Yeah, I don't think we ever did discuss the salary for unofficial spokesman, did we?
I'm sure we mentioned Luke was going to actually pay you, so I'll leave that in his capable hands.
Probably.
So, have you got any plans coming up? Any Rutus activities, metal detecting, etc., etc.?
Well, I've been lucky at the minute because I've managed to blag not working any Friday for the next 4 or 5 weeks. So my current plan is, weather permitting, to hit as many of my permissions in the run-up to Christmas and take the landowners bottles of various alcoholic beverages and try and get as much detecting in and hope that the weather holds. So we've had a lot of, it feels like we've had 3 months of rain given how boggy some of the fields are. So I'm hoping after a few days of it drying off a little bit, might actually be able to get some out.
Yeah, well, I'm off tomorrow. Unfortunately, I've got a clinic appointment from 10 till 12. If that wasn't the case and I was off tomorrow, I'd be going out myself. But the time I get up, take the kids to school, it's then more or less after I had a brew, time to go to the pain clinic, come back from there 2 hours later, and it's time more or less littling up from school again. So that's me out of that. I think my next one is actually the 16th. Is it 16th? Sorry, the 15th with the Dudley metal detecting. So that's my next time out. So
well, hopefully the weather will be good and you'll be able to get the routes out.
So have you ever any other plans for the YouTube channel, Tony?
Yeah, so one of the things I thought would be quite useful to discuss, it's come up a couple of times in comments and a couple of times with sort of private messages from people, is around how to get and how to gain permissions. I know a lot of beginners sort of struggle with private permissions and end up on club digs or on beaches, which obviously suits many people, but I know a lot of people like a private permission so they can go and escape the hustle and bustle. And all my private permissions, of which I've now got 12, have come from sitting in my armchair. So I just thought it'd be useful probably to do a video on permissions, but I thought whilst we're at it, we could have a quick chat about it tonight as well, Dave. And
certainly, crack on.
Any listeners or downloaders would find it useful.
Crack on.
Cool. So as I said, I've been detecting 2.5 years. Hard to be a detectorist without permission or club local. And I'm a complete city boy. No rural background, no relatives in sort of rural places or in any rural industries. So I was a little bit stuck in terms of how to go about getting a permission. And I'm not the sort of person that's good at doorstepping, so not your natural salesperson. So I'm not going to walk up to a farmhouse and knock on a door and ask somebody if I can go and dig in their garden. So the one thing I'm good at is doing stuff on the internet. So As is always the case, Google is your friend in this situation. So what I did was start looking at farms and landowners where I could get the contact details from and get a hold of them that way. What I quickly discovered was, and perhaps understandably, but I was naive at the time, is that most farmers have no reason to put their details online. So their email addresses are online. Most farms don't have websites. So you're left with a quite difficult to contact group unless you start getting creative about it and think of it the other way around. So most farms don't sell directly to the public. They sell to wholesalers who sell to retailers. So they don't. It's not done directly. So what I did was I worked out that there are a bunch of farms who have secondary businesses, and if I could find those and target those, then that would give me their contact details, be it email addresses and or websites. So what I did was I looked for. Here's a bunch of examples of what I looked for to find out their digital details. The main one, or one of the key ones, is farm shops. A lot of farm shops connected directly to farms. Stables and equestrian centres, petting zoos and activity centres are often on smaller farms. Fisheries, my second biggest permission, some nearly 300 acres. I contacted it as a fishery, not realising that he had that was only a side business, and he had a 300-acre farm as well. Camping and caravan sites often on farms, rural wedding venues, converted barns and farmhouse type stays where you can go accommodation level. And kennels are often on farms as well. And all of those have proven to be useful in terms of finding digital details and or websites or Facebook pages for those type of businesses, which allows you to then contact them via email or via message of some description, which gives you the benefit of not doorstepping a farmer who might be disinterested. They can say no by just ignoring you. You also make it nice and easy for them to get hold of you if they want to. And it's not really intrusive to anybody if they're not interested. And you'd be surprised just how many of those sort of businesses connected with farms there are out there. So if you Google farm shops for your local area and go as broad as you're willing to travel, then you'd be surprised at how many you'll find there and how many you can then contact without setting foot outside of your house.
Shocking. Some of the things that you've mentioned there, some of the locations, just it wouldn't occur, not only to me, but to other people, I'm sure. And I appreciate the amount that you've mentioned that I know of, and yeah, accessible perhaps. So when this is the podcast is published, I'll be listening back definitely, so I can write them down, because obviously I'm unable to hear you 100% and I missed a couple, but the ones I did hear, obvious places really.
Yeah, and I think it's the convenience of being able to do it without travelling. The convenience if you're a bit shy and you don't want to, stand on somebody's doorstep and ask for permission. It's a lot easier that way around. And a well-worded email, spell check it, because good spelling's good manners. And if you've got something that you can do for the farm or the landowner, I don't know if you're an electrician or there's something that you can offer back in return, that always goes down well as well. So it can be a really easy and useful way to get hold of people. I'm not saying that you'll get a massive success rate. I think mine's about 8% of those that I send out respond, and probably 5% end up as permissions. But given that you're doing it by just sending an email, it is relatively easy to do, relatively easy to send a lot out, and hopefully, with the right list and the right email, you'll get some permissions coming your way from unexpected sources.
Definitely a good idea, Tony. Obviously, it's something that I've not generally thought of before some of the locations. So yeah, I'll be definitely, as I say, I'm off tomorrow. So when I'm not at the clinic, I'll definitely be sat here on the computer doing stuff, and I think that's something I'll definitely need to consider getting up on straight away. To be fair.
Yeah,
so
so
you're
well,
going
like
to
I
be
said,
making
it's
a YouTube video regarding this.
yeah. I think over the Christmas period, probably when the weather stopped me from actually getting out and making a normal digging video, I'll add to my research videos with something around how to get permissions without leaving the house type of idea, just to cover off those sort of thoughts and ways, example emails maybe and those sort of things, just to give people a leg up really, and hopefully a few more people get a few more permissions out of it.
It was definitely, it's getting more and more difficult to find a location with a site owner or landowner who's willing to give their permission to use the site. And obviously the amount of metal detectorists in the country now is probably at an all-time high. So, yeah, locations are getting a smaller grasp at the at gaining permission to do it. So, given everything that you've suggested, the people that you can contact, and as you say, if you could do a little bit for them, if I go to a farm, I work in the hydraulic business unit, so I can tell them what to use with the hydraulics, and that's about it. Steve Pettican, he says he does welding job for farmers, so I'm sure there's some friendliness goes on there, no doubt.
Yeah, and everybody's got on either something that they can do from either another hobby point of view, or like Stephen with his welding. There is something usually that you can sort of offer in return. They might not ever take you up on it, but the fact that you've shown willing will certainly help endear to them. And when you develop and establish a decent relationship with a farmer, I've had a couple of recommended me to other farmers. So, permissions get permissions, as it were, because they all tend to know each other in the local area. So you can end up with extra permissions without trying too hard, other than just being, well, I guess, a decent human being and having manners and respecting their land and respecting, their farming businesses and those sort of things.
I know I've got a visit to make myself. One of the permissions that I had for a period of time. I live in Congleton, and I'm from Ellesmere Port, which is quite a distance away. And oddly, a friend of mine from school, who was in my year at school, she put on a picture of doing the grass and what have you, doing the hay in the tractor. And I thought to myself, I know that road. So I texted her and I went, I know that road. And she went, why? I said, Rushton Spencer. She said, yeah, how do you know? I said, well, I live in Congleton. I go down that road every day. Well, yeah. So obviously off the back of that, she and a partner allowed me to metal detect on the land. We were able to use a massive amount of it for a rally, a charity rally. Unfortunately, they've sold and moved to Cumbria. Now, I've got permission to go onto their new land in Cumbria, but it's a bit of a drive, so I need to go back and have a chat with the new owners, and hopefully Helen and Robin can pass on some good words for them, because there's actually one of the fields, Tony. I've not actually discussed this with. I've discussed it with an archaeologist friend of mine. They've got a field, and it's called the Castle Field, and this particular field has got let's say it rises up to a flat point, which potentially could have had some form of building on there in the past. And it's also interesting that the locality, there's the few farms, and they have Earl's Way in the title, and the Earl's Way I've looked into, and it was actually a medieval road which was used by the Earls of Chester to travel or to send their tax people to collect, getting the tax together. They'd use the Earl's Way. So I believe that this castle potentially may have been some stopping point or some protection for the Earl's Way road. So I definitely need to go back there, because with the assistance of the archaeologist I mentioned previously, there is several areas within that field that I'd actually like to conduct some form of initial excavation to see if there's anything of consequence that may be bring a more established organisation into and obviously participate in a dig with them. So it's
sounds promising.
a reminder that I've definitely need to do myself. In fact, I wrote it down while I was chatting.
Yep, sounds very promising, mate. You need to get on that one.
Certainly, and I mean, it is interesting that it was actually a charity event there was an explosion at a wood mill not far away in a place called Bosley. 5 people died, and obviously a lot of people lost their jobs, etc., etc. And there was a fund started locally, and the fund, obviously, lots of different companies were putting into it, lots of different charitable events taking place. And speaking to Helen and Robin, they agreed with me, use our land for an event. So we raised about £1,500, I think. But interestingly, the finds that we found there on this potential Earl's Way area, we found a Bronze Age axe head and also a beautiful gilded medieval hairpin. And it was quite a substantial piece as well. So,
Nice.
Several hammered as well. So it's a very interesting area, but obviously the fields that I was using were away from where the major site was. So it's something I'm very, very interested in learning more of when time allows.
And what a shame that the charity event and the money you raised for the disaster doesn't make the mainstream news. It's always either treasure or somebody getting done for stealing treasure. Never all the great work for charitable causes that detectorists do week in, week out.
Oh, they do. I mean, let's look. Detectable. A lot of their money is going to charity. In fact, when you were with us, the opposite stall to us was selling raffle tickets for the little boy.
I bought stuff off him.
Disease or something wrong that he needed to go to America for an operation. What a lovely little boy, wasn't he?
He was.
And obviously, Detectable raised funds for Rodney Cook, raised something like £32,000, which was split between 3 charities. Again, that didn't make major mainstream. It made local news, and it made it made smaller newspaper news. But £32,000 is unheard of in a small, which has grown phenomenally thanks to what everybody's done for it with Gary Cook and the rest of his colleagues. The one next year, Scotty Bay will be a charitable event. But each and every one of the smaller events that the Archaeology Metal Detecting magazine has promoted, the likes of South Coast rallies, the likes of Jason Massey's Veterans, Digging for Veterans, each and every one of these has made a substantial amount of money for different charities. In fact, most metal detecting rallies, apart from ones which are organised by companies which are there solely to organise rallies, make a hell of a lot of money. In a year, you're talking £100,000 plus made between metal detecting groups, metal detecting events, etc., donations from people within the community. Which, you're right, it goes unnoticed and unheard, apart from ourselves.
Preaching to the converted, I'm afraid, when it's just us talking about it, unfortunately.
I think most people who were listening would agree as well, Tony. There's a lot of nice people within the subject who do a lot for charity, and they don't wish to be patted on the back for it. They go very unnoticed. But, it's kudos to every single one of them who's organised and raised any money in metal detecting for charity. It's fantastic.
Yeah, great effort. Maybe we should get the NCMD to get a press officer or issue press releases on behalf of the hobby in general.
Certainly a good idea. It's myself and Luke have been invited to their next meeting in February, so you can ask to have additions to the day's event, obviously all the different bits and bobs and what have you. So it's something that we could certainly look at of giving mention to, definitely. Because as you say, it's something that the ever ever increasing hobbyists get so much bad press from different areas, and it's the bad press that always become known. So yeah, someone very prominent, an organisation very prominent should go forward and raise the awareness, really.
Yeah, exactly. And anything that puts the hobby in a good light, given recent bad press, would be useful at the minute.
You've got a question. You've answered it on the chat room, but obviously other people who listen to this post the live edition. Will you ever go live on YouTube?
Once I figure out the technology and which buttons to press, then I might do. I'm not sure it'll be quite as interesting as when Scott and Kimmy go live, because they've got to bounce off each other and their madcap antics. But hey, anything's possible. Anything's possible.
It's something that Luke keeps bringing up with myself as well, Tony, to do something not dissimilar to the podcast, but on YouTube. I'm like yourself. I'm not particularly interested in people seeing me face. I can talk a good game, and that'll do me. So the appearing on the screen itself, maybe not for me. But hey, we'll see. Given what people want, if it's something that readers and listeners want us to do, we can potentially look at doing something in the future. But thankfully, I haven't got a webcam either.
Any excuse. You've got a phone. That's all you need these days.
Well, the videos that I have made, generally it's Archeo Boy who appears on them when he's doing his magnet fishing, because hey, what 7-year-old doesn't love going on YouTube, being able to see himself and telling his mates he's on YouTube, and everything else. I've tried to do historical walkthroughs of locations like Tintagel and the old post office in Tintagel as well, giving it a walkthrough and talk about the history. In fact, I was lucky to actually bump into an archaeologist who'd been running events at the post office in Tintagel and interview him. So, I'd rather do things like that, walking through the Winch Museum at Bowcastle, than why would I need to show me face? I can talk a good game.
Well, I seem to remember you showing your face a little bit on the Detectable videos, mate.
Unfortunately, that was Luke trying something else. That was Luke videoing the live broadcasts. So that was Mr.
Seemed
Higgins
to go all right.
For that.
Seemed to go all right. Nothing went wrong. Nothing blew up.
Well, I always thought I was dead slim and had a little nose, and that made me look dead fat with a big nose. So.
Yeah, I know what you mean, mate. It's YouTube puts on about 2 stone, I think.
So, give us another shout out for the YouTube channel, Tony.
Yep. So TC Detects on YouTube and on Instagram. Check out Team Rutus UK website and mobile app. I've started doing reviews of other people's YouTube channels at the end of my videos. So if you've got a smaller channel and you want a review, drop me a message. I'll be happy to. And check it out in general for the 400 subscriber giveaway as well. You never know, you could win a brand new pinpointer.
If you wouldn't mind in the future, you could review the podcast and the magazine if possible, Tony, if that would be okay.
Absolutely would be, mate. Yeah, definitely. I will sort something out on that one.
You are wonderful. So, that's Tony Cawood, TC Detects. Tony's also, I asked him a couple of weeks ago to come on board as admin for the big metal detecting podcast Facebook group, because we've had masses of people come on board over the last couple of weeks, mainly, I think, because of the next week's broadcast with the National Council for Metal Detecting. So for those who didn't hear earlier, the National Council for Metal Detecting will be on the broadcast next week. John Regby, the membership secretary, and they will be drawing a random number generator on all members' numbers, and they will be giving away 10 detectors, 5 XP ORXs and 5 Equinox 800. So that'll be live on the show next week. So if you could let people know, if you are in a group or organisation, or go on a dig which is NCMD orientated, just to let people know that that is taking place. Because obviously it's only been going through social media and ourselves who've been talking about it to make people aware. So if you could let people know, we would much appreciate that. And obviously people will be able to tune in and listen to, hey, there's 15, 16, 17,000 members. There's 10 metal detectors potentially with your name on, hopefully with mine on.
And mine.
So don't forget, everybody who's a member of the NCMD is automatically entered into that draw. So that'll be ongoing throughout the podcast next week, where I am joined as well by, hopefully, if he's able to, because work's manic for him at the moment, Mr. Luke Higgins, and we'll be chatting about his other little venture of South Coast rallies. I think that's the correct... Is that the correct one, Tony?
Is it not UK Dirt Fishing Rallies? I don't know. It's on the YouTube channel anyway, UK Dirt Fishing. You'll find out.
If you go over to UK Dirt Fishing, you'll be able to find what the name of that is, and they've got a Facebook group and organise metal detecting events in the south east of the UK, or is it the south east rallies? It's one of them anyway, but I'm sure you'll find out more. So again, thank you, Tony, for coming on tonight at short notice and helping out and letting us all know about the YouTube channel, Rutus, and other things that are going on.
My absolute pleasure as always, Dave.
Marvellous. So we're going to leave tonight. Obviously, you remember a couple of weeks ago we had the gentleman from the legendary 10 Seconds, Mr. Ian Churchward. Last week we ended it with driverless cars. This week we're going to go back to the start with a song for a metal detector. I'm Dave Sadler. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week.
Are so old, such fine detail and deep behold. They were dropped so long ago. By whom they were lost, we will never know.
My gold stater of the Dubonnet tribe, the thrill of finding it I can't describe. 2,000 years lost in the ground, such a precious thing that I have found.
Look at these coins which are so old, such fine detail as to behold. They were dropped so long ago. By whom they were lost, we will never know.
This Roman coin found on a farm, a festina denarii, has so much charm. It was in Perthshire or in Worcestershire, there in a field in the mud and mire. I'm metal detecting tomorrow. If it's a good one, I'll let you know. To find a hammered coin would be great, then a hammy dance to celebrate. Another coin I can show to you is dated 1682. It's the best one I've found so far this year. The king's head on it is so very clear. Look at these coins which are so old.